Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, today we're continuing to cover the war between the Russian Federation, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and its Ukrainian proxy forces. Now, we are continuing to observe the collapse of the Kuryakhova pocket. This pocket was created soon after the collapse and defeat of Ukrainian forces within the vicinity of Volodar. As we speak, the Kuryakhova pocket is collapsing day in and day out. Now let's look at what has happened over the last few days, and we'll kind of go back and forth just a few days, and you, the viewer, can see exactly what is happening. Very difficult situation for Ukrainian forces. At the same time, we're continuing to see incredibly heavy fighting taking place in Toretsk. This area here, let's go over to the other map. That gives us a better view of the landscape. The resolution on this map is much better. But you can see a very sizable town, sizable city, with large multi-Soviet, multi-dwelling units. You have some industrial sites as well. But specifically, the center of this city is a hellscape of urban conflict. We are seeing continued engagements between the forces of the Russian Federation and Ukrainian proxy forces that are engaging each other in just vicious street to street, building to building, house to house, basement to basement fighting that is going on in this area. And you can see that the Russians have advanced to the center of the city, and the Ukrainians are essentially engaging in a falling back action against Russian forces. To the south, we are starting to see Russian forces start to envelop the southern part of the city, and at the same time continuing to use vast amounts of heavy artillery, GLONASS guided bomb strikes against Ukrainian forces in this area. At the same time, going back over to the south, by southwest of Pokrovsk, we can see that the Ukrainian lines continue to collapse day in and day out. Let's go back over to the deep state. Let's go broad out a little bit where we can capture both the Kuryakhova pocket and then other areas, both to the south and just to the north, and you, the viewer, can see what exactly has happened during this very large Donbas offensive that the Russians continue to successfully execute against Ukrainian forces. Now, this is going to be an incredibly long 1 month and about 20 days for Ukrainian forces. Just call it 2 months until the Trump administration takes power and the spigot is cut off permanently for Ukrainian forces. Look, we do not anticipate that the new administration will provide unlimited funding for the Ukrainian war effort. And that is going to have a massive impact. And in all probability, that election has had an incredible impact on the future course of this war, specifically regarding the length of time the war will now be shortened. The morale of Ukrainian forces just prior to the actual election was incredibly low. We have seen tens upon tens upon tens of thousands of Ukrainian troops absent without leave. We have seen them desert their posts. We have seen many tens of thousands refuse entry into essentially the Ukrainian selective service or the conscription process of the Ukrainian armed forces. The Ukrainians were in incredibly dire shape in the lead up to the election, with morale incredibly low. After the election, that has since even plummeted much worse, because the Ukrainian troops that are going to be spending the winter on the front line, getting bombed day in and day out by Russian forces, have absolutely no hope. No hope. Hope has been cut off. And we will, in all probability, see a quickening of the collapse of the Ukrainian armed forces once this really sinks in. And we're probably seeing this happen right now. It's just not being reported. If you look at the advances that have been made by Russian forces, specifically in the Kirkova pocket, it has been significant. The Ukrainian military right now is in an incredibly bad state of affairs. And again, you are going to see a quickening of that post-U.S. election. It would not surprise me if we start to see general protests in the street taking place in Kiev and other larger cities throughout the Ukraine, demanding a number of things. One, an end to the war, an end of the current conscription processes, and then obviously the opportunity for Ukrainians to vote. Remember, there has not been an election since Volodymyr Zelensky took power. Because of the war, Volodymyr Zelensky has canceled the Constitution and canceled elections inside of the Ukraine. And that has been done, quote unquote, because of the war. The shining beacon of Western democracy in Eastern Europe, known as the Ukraine or the borderlands, the shining beacon of democracy, canceled elections because of a conflict. That is going to have repercussions. As people grow tired of the conflict, as the money is cut off, and funding of government employees cease, as the Russians continue to prosecute its war effort, shutting down electrical power, collapsing the electrical and power grids, will continue to dash any hope that the Ukrainians have in this mythological victory of retaking the Crimea. And that is just something that right now those in the Ukraine that for whatever reason believe that is still possible is simply an impossibility. The Crimea is a permanent part of the Russian Federation. Permanently. As is a multitude of eastern Ukrainian regions as well. They're going to have to accept that. There is no ability on the part of the Ukrainian military to change that situation. It's not going to happen. And again, in all probability, as we get closer and closer to the early parts of next year, things are really going to fall apart for both the Ukrainian military and the current Ukrainian government of Volodymyr Zelensky. Thanks for joining us. More to come very, very soon. As always, have a good day.